Right now, let's bring in Rob Doucette and talk about some examples of how you can implement some basic ergonomic principles into your operations and your workstations. Hi, Rob.
How are we doing?
Good.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to go over some of the basic ergonomic principles that we apply when we're putting together these applications. And the five we're looking at today starts off with optimizing position. Then we're going to start looking at eliminating extreme movements, minimizing forces and repetition, order and color coding, and finally, optimize lighting. So as we move on, I have had the privilege of working on many different projects over the years with large companies. And funny enough, one of the first questions people ask me is, oh, how did this person do it? But again, talking about challenges is the answer to that question is really, they may have done it this way, but your operation is different. And everything, no two operations that I've ever seen do things quite the same. But in addition to challenges like that, we have, funny enough, people. As Jeff mentioned earlier, differences in, say, gender, height, ethnicity, people's physical abilities, and age can be all over the map. So when you're designing these applications or these cells, you have to keep this all in mind because, again, it's fitting the task to the worker, not the worker to the task. So as we move forward, let's take a look at the first principle. Let's look at optimizing position. In this example, I'm going to see a multi-shift, multi-operator facility. And let's take a look at this individual in the front, in the middle. This person, he has a station that has been set up for them. They are in a very neutral position, so they can reach everything. They don't have to extend very far. But as we move on to different shifts or different people come in and work on these stations, we start to see these problems. As you can see, looking towards the right, you have an operator that is shorter than the original operator. So as you can see, this person now has to kind of adjust themselves to work on this station. You see that they are starting to reach above their shoulder and they're stretching. And now, again, as you can see, the height of the surface is not ideal, so they're not working at the optimum position. And then they are extending their feet and stretching, and they're trying to push themselves up in order to work on the station. Overall, not good. But so we go through and we fix this, but now we've caused problems for the first person. So we've lowered the station, but now we run into the opposite problem. They have to bend over in order to work on the station. It's not optimal anymore. It's not neutral. So now they're starting to strain their neck because they're starting to look down. Their back is starting to be bent. So now, again, this may not be a problem in the beginning, but over time, this is most certainly going to affect this operator. So what can we do? If we move on to the next slide, here's an optimal solution. A height adjustable workstation. As you can see, you can have the height set for the first individual. So now they are back in a neutral position. And then as different operators come in, or as we saw the shorter individual, they can lower the station and it puts it all back into a neutral position. It puts people into what we call the first or second zones. So now let's look at another example. This is also optimizing position, but in this particular scenario, we're going to look at work instructions or documentation. This might be something for, say, like an assembly task, could be instructions, how the individual is supposed to put these pieces together. Or in a fulfillment operation, this could be invoices or just labeling. As you can see on the left-hand side, this individual has a stack of papers, we'll say, or a notebook. They have to look at these materials, and in order to do so, it's laid down on this surface, and they have to bend their neck. So again, something that in the beginning may not be too much of a problem, but as time goes on and the more they do it, it's going to start more issues. They're going to start hurting. So what can we do to fix something like this? As we look to the right, you have an individual, we've implemented a monitor arm. It is becoming more and more common for companies to digitize information. Again, work instructions, you can access most of these things on computers, as well as invoices for orders and such. So what we do is we put that information right in front of the operator, in this case on a monitor arm, and it puts it right in their field of vision. So they don't have to look down in order to access the information. Puts them in a much more neutral position for their body and neck. So let's move on to the next example. Or I'm sorry, let's look at a couple of ways we can help optimize position. These are some of the accessories, as we shown in the last example, that can help with these ergonomically sound positionings. We have height adjustable arms. These are, I would say, probably the best solutions. As you can see, these arms, as we're going from left to right, this is a pneumatic arm and pneumatic keyboard tray. These allow you to not only have the monitors and keyboards in a good position for one individual, but as someone else comes to the station, they allow you to adjust the heights on the fly. So again, the best range of adjustability and flexibility. Articulating arms, again, much better positioning than what we saw in the first example as a bad example. It does allow you to move the monitors in or out, and it does put the keyboard at a much better position, but it does not allow you to adjust the height. So again, definitely an improvement upon just having something on a surface, but not as good as the height adjustable arms. There are also types of combined arms, but again, they're mostly articulating, not much height adjustability. There are also keyboard trays, excellent items for putting keyboards out of reach for when you're not using them. So again, one of the things that we do when we're designing a workstation is we try to take anything that doesn't pertain to the task off the work surface. Because again, you need that space to do what you're trying to do. You don't need a bunch of things cluttering it up. So these are ideal for keyboard trays and moving them out of the site.